Welcome to another segment of my YouTube channel. Now, for those of you who've been watching my YouTube channel, this guest is not a stranger. He's been on my YouTube channel before, talking about his experiences growing up. Well, since that show, he has published a book. The book is called Dreaming Beyond Your Diagnosis. Yes. And in that book, he has a 10-step guide, and we're going to talk briefly about today on this. Obviously, we cannot cover everything about the book, but I want to first of all take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Walkin on the publishing of his first book.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
But I tell you this, when I got the invitation to your launch, I wrote my book too, but I have the manuscript, but I haven't published the book. And when I know you was planning on publishing this book, because you told me about it, and you even connect me with someone, the publisher. And I keep procrastinating. I'm telling you, since you published that book, you have inspired me to proceed with the publication of my book. So
please do.
Hopefully by the end of this year,
please do.
My book will be published.
Please do.
That's my goal. Because you published what I say. You're more like the drive that made me to go ahead. Because I was saying, man, it's COVID-19. I ain't gonna do this, but it's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a story that we could tell, that we can inspire others. We could, learn from our mistakes and our past, and sometimes it's a story for us as well when we reflect on where we came from to where we are now.
Yeah.
So tell us about this book. I mean, what drove you to even write a book?
It's amazing, and thank you for having me again. You're a man of your word. You did promise you'll bring me back, and you did, and I appreciate that. It's interesting, believe it or not, that this book that I just published is not the book that I originally wrote. I have another manuscript book that has yet to be published.
So you have a full manuscript?
Yes.
Okay.
So I actually have two books. I just chose to publish one. The first book that I wrote, it was like a memoir from my life and my experiences, a lot of what I would have shared with you and your viewers the last time I was here. I felt that I had some amazing stories, some amazing experiences that didn't need to be kept to myself. So in the early summer of 2017, at my lowest point, I began to write, because I was unemployed, I was unelected, and I was unmarried.
Unelected, okay.
Yeah. So I reached a point where 2017. This is after the 2016 election, and I was like, Jas, there's a lot of for one man. You need to turn this around. So I said, years ago, God used people to speak into your life about you becoming a very famous author, but you've never done any writing or done any projects towards bringing that word to fulfillment. So I started writing, and it was a reflective, like as I said, a memoir. When I finished the book during the lockdown of 2020. So it took me 3 years to finish that project. And a lot of it was procrastination. A lot of it was me feeling as if there were some missing elements to it, that somehow it was a piece of the story that wasn't finished. My mom passed in 2019, so certainly I needed to reflect on that. So in 2020, during the lockdown, I finished the book because I had the time, and I had no excuse why I shouldn't finish it. So I finished the book. I contacted the publisher, and I said, listen, I'm ready to publish. I sent her the manuscript. But a few days later, listening to a program during the lockdown, I heard a gentleman say a very popular scripture: your gifts make room for you and bring you before a great man. And God began to speak to me and said, Jas, the only thing you want to do with your gift of writing is to write on political issues in this country. Not that it's a bad thing, but you only seem to be trying to use your gift for one room, when I have so many other rooms for your gift. Get up and touch some other people's lives with the skill that I have given you. So when I heard that message resonate with me, I got up and I said, okay, so if I'm not going to write if the memoirs is not enough to touch people's lives, what should I write about? Because only people who really know me would appreciate my stories. Turks and Caicos only have about 38,000 people. The world has over 7 billion. And this when the idea came to me Jas, you and your mother lived an extraordinary experience without any diagnosis, without any real support from government, without any community or systemic support. Your mother found a way to not just inspire you, not just to empower you, but she fought for you within a system where there were so much reasons for her to quit. Why not reflect on that experience, not just by telling a story, but providing a practical manual for other mothers and children that they could benefit from your experience. So I came up with the idea. I didn't have the name for the book as yet, but I said I'm going to write a manual on how to live successfully with a disability. Drax, it's amazing, and people may not believe me when I say this. It took me 3 years to write the first manuscript. This manuscript I wrote in 3 weeks.
Wow.
About 20,000 words in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I know it was not just my ability. I was inspired. I found myself nights could not sleep because I just needed to get this stuff documented. And so I began to write the book, and I said, now, just about halfway through the book, I said, what am I going to call this book? And I was talking to a friend of mine, I think you know Marilyn Williams. She was married to Riney Williams, deceased. Her daughter, Shandira, and I, we grew up together, like same age group. And I was telling her about the first manuscript that I wrote. And, you know, she said, what are you going to call it? And I said to her, I don't know. And she said, man, we spent so much time inside the sandbox playing at Holton Williams' yard. You know, we lived out, we had so many dreams inside the sandbox. And I said, I like that. I think I call it Dreams I Had in the Sand. So that's the name of the memoir, Dreams I Had in the Sand. So after I said, Dreams I Had in the Sand, a light bulb went off in my head. What about dreaming beyond your diagnosis? But that's what you've done. You've dreamed, and you've lived a lot of those dreams.
Yeah.
And
your diagnosis didn't keep you.
Yeah, it didn't keep me down. And then I decided that, you know what, this is how I'm going to write this book. I want to write this book as a step manual. And while writing the book, I also realized why the memoirs could not be published as yet. Because I discovered that the memoirs was a part of my healing process.
Okay.
I don't know if you've experienced this in your writing, because I'm not sure what your book is about, but I have found that writing helps you a lot with healing.
Yes.
Because it forces you to reflect.
Yeah.
And when you reflect and you read what you write, there may be some scars and some hurts that you may have thought you were over.
Oh.
And when you put it in black and white, Jax, I was washed away in tears many nights writing that first manuscript. And then when I wrote the second manuscript, the one that is published, Dreaming Beyond Your Diagnosis, I found a newfound gratitude for the mother that God gave me.
Oh wow, that's awesome, Jas.
And I behave in the room as if I was losing her all over again. I had to pull myself, I had to take a break from the laptop, because even though I appreciated her while she was alive, and I knew that she was a special mother, when I began to write about the things she did right, and how one of the best kept secret, and one of the reasons why I know this book is going to change lives, not just here in TCI, but globally. And that's why I know God needed me to write this manual. I called my publisher. I said, Chantel, I have a publisher. I wrote a second book. She said, what do you mean you wrote a second book? We just cut the manuscript 2-3 weeks ago. I said, I know, but I said, your company is called Bestsellers because you turn books into bestsellers. That's not a bestseller. This is a bestseller. She said, so what do you want us to do? I said, I'm going to send you this manuscript. You advise me on whether it's a separate piece of work or whether you can combine it with my memoirs. You figure it out. You're the publisher. So she called me a few days later. I was scared because I felt very strongly about the second book, more convinced than the first. She emailed me back and said, Jas, your book blessed us. We thought the first one blessed us, but this one, she said, you're right, this is a separate piece of work. We think we should go with this book. This book here.
This one first.
Let's go with this first. So got the ball rolling, and a lot of people, they're a little bit surprised when they saw my announcement, because they're like, where did you find the time to write about? I know. But this book here, I didn't do it for me. The first book was for me. This book here, I did it for special needs children, for the mothers that God have given them. Because in the writing of this book, one of the things that I appreciated mostly was that Mama was operating blindly. She had this child, didn't know what diagnosis was. She saw the medical file and all of that, but special needs was a taboo word back then. Much more than it is now, because there's a little bit more education now. But one thing I remember her doing, two things that changed my life from the beginning. One, she loved me unconditionally. She never made me feel at any moment that I was a burden to her. Two, instead of focusing on my disability, she focused on my ability. And that is something that parents don't do even with normal children, even adults with no disability. Sometimes in life, Drax, I feel as if we focus too much on what we can't do, rather than what we can do.
You're right.
And how did Mama do this to me? When my mom realized that I had a physical disability and that my physical limitations would limit me from doing everyday tasks, she supported me to get those tasks done. But when she realized that my cognitive skills or my cognitive impairment, there was no cognitive impairment, she maximized the potential of my brain, and that motivated her to push me. Talking about diagnosis, I have to share this. The miracle of my life, or one of the miracles of my life, I previously shared, was self-acceptance. When I learned to accept myself for who I was. And I wrote about that inside the book. You've got to accept yourself for who you are. Because if you don't accept yourself, the world will not. People relate to you how you relate to yourself. The nickname The General and all of what I've experienced being the popular, influential person that I am is partly because of how I relate to myself, how I introduce myself to the world, to the country. If I was shy and bashful and still uncomfortable in my skin, then I would be treated as the uncomfortable person in my skin. But my strength, my boldness, my courage, it has caused people to see me now as a strong person. And one of the things that I had to do in this book is share with Turks and Caicos the Jas Walkin story, not the General, because the General is a fearless fighter. But there was a guy that before he got to the General was a shy, scared boy who didn't even want to go in the mirror to see himself. But the miracle of my diagnosis, Drax, was that it took me only when I was 35 years old to come face to face with my diagnosis. And even talking about it now, I get emotional because here it was all my life. I didn't have a name, a specific name for why I was this way, And when I came face to face with the diagnosis of cerebral palsy and having researched all the symptoms and how much of those symptoms was prevalent in my life, and I described it in the book of all the evidence of this diagnosis. But one of the most significant things missing in the 90% of diagnosed cerebral palsy was missing in mine. I ended up in the 10%, and that is cognitive impairment. How could a God have given me all of these other elements? The shaking, the involuntary shaking, is a result of the brain damage. Yet the brain is not damaged. That's a miracle.
It is a miracle.
It is a miracle. The loss of oxygen that occurred during my delivery is a result of the brain damage and the result of the involuntary shaking and as a result of the spinal curvature with my head being lean and the result of me not having equal strength on both sides of my body. But nonetheless, the parts of the brain that speak to intelligence and cognitive, he preserved that. That, for me, had become the new miracle in my life. And that gave me a new sense of gratitude. And that's why I said, God, if I am in the 10% of those who have cognitive capabilities, then I know you did it for me to write about it.
Yes.
To write about it and to say to the world that I serve a miracle working God and that my story is an amazing one, not because of who I am now, but because where I've come from. God it was not easy. There were days where I did not feel as if I would ever be able to sit here in this capacity to reach a place where someone want to hear my story. Because I remember when I never used to dream. When people asked me where I wanted to be, it was only to be near my mommy. Because I didn't see a future for me where I would live on my own. Because there was so much I couldn't do for myself. One of the chapters I wrote about in the book was creating your own space. And I mention it because That's how I got to be where I am now. How did I create my own space? Maureen Williams taught me how to create my own space. Because when she made the accommodation for me to write with the right size pencil, not the standard 12B. And a lot of times in life, we focus so much on how the tasks need to be done rather than getting the task done.
Yeah. And there are other ways of getting things done.
Exactly. So I've learned to create my own space. There were a lot of people who thought I would never drive. There were people who thought I probably would never finish school and successfully, and not just finish school. God allowed me to finish top of my graduating class. There was a video posted recently. I shared it on my website. And when I watched the clip of me 20 years ago, declaring to this country that I don't look at myself as ill, but I look at myself as special, because doctors told my mom, you know, all of the cases they have encountered in their experience, the child had cognitive delays and impairment, but they couldn't figure this one out. And I said to, in that video 20 years ago, when they asked, what's your plans? I said to them, I'm going to go to the College of the Bahamas, get my bachelor's degree in education, return home, and I'm going to be a force to be reckoned with in education. I said that 20 years ago. And I look back and I said, when I wish people of TCI and those watching around the world would understand the power our words have. Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
And that is so true. One thing the Bible doesn't lie.
I'm telling you.
That is so true. Life and death is in the power.
I watched the video and I got so emotional. Of course, my mom was in it, and you know, I lost her 2 years ago. So seeing her in that element, you know, it was refreshing to me. And I said, and then I said to them, I'm going to qualify myself to hold any administrative position in TCI. I said this 20 years ago, and you know, I reflect back, and back then, Drax, I didn't know what I was talking about. I'm not saying, but I was speaking it, you know. And I'm grateful to God, because one of the reasons why I know He has kept me, because I'll say this to you, it's been spoken over my life, and I received every word of it, that I'm going to receive full healing in my body before I die.
I believe that.
I'm looking forward to that day. You know why? And I said, you know what God is going to do for me? God wants me to go around the world in this form, because He wants as many people to see this video in this form. Because when they see me before I die, when they see me again, it'll be a different Jas, and they would know that it wasn't fake, it wasn't pretend, but it was a God miracle. And the reason why I share that story is because one of the reasons I know that He still has me like this is to keep me humble. It is very easy for us to forget God.
Yes, it is, especially when you have achieved those goals that you. When I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror. Every now and then, I go in the mirror to see how I look. And it's a reminder every day of where I come from. Okay, you look in the mirror.
I look in the mirror. I look in the mirror because, and sometimes when I go and I have a speaking engagement and I still feel unbalanced, people don't believe this, but I still get nervous before I go speak to a crowd.
Because I do.
When I feel the unbalance, I say, thank you, God, because you reminded me. Hey, listen to me, you little shaky boy. I'm still in charge. Don't get too full of yourself. I'm still in. I still that because one morning I had an experience in college where He had to talk to me that way. I didn't pray. I didn't say thank you. I just got up and felt as if I was on top of the world. I'm a big boy and I'm in college. You know, I'm advancing in life. And I got a reminder. I had a nervous attack on me like never before in my life. The bus driver most carried me to Princess Margaret Hospital. But you know, I thank God every day. And in this book, I'm really excited because, you know, a few persons have contacted me already. Who have purchased it and read it and said, Jas, I couldn't get through the first chapter without stopping and crying and reflecting on the hard truths. Because one of the first things that I spoke about, because I divided it in two sections. The first half of the book is for the parent or the guardian. The second half is for the individual with special need. Or any individual who needs to know that, hey, you're blessed and you can do better.
You don't have special needs.
So in the first chapter, I said, like it or not, the child is yours. And the reason why I said that, I pointed to a simple illustration. We didn't get to pick our parents. So we didn't get to pick our parents. Why should parents get to pick their children? You don't tell God which child to give you, how to give it to you. Basically, I'm saying this is your gift. This is what He is choosing to give to you. And one of the things I said in the book, I said, listen, my family learned that sometimes the best gifts come in crinkled paper.
Crinkled paper.
A lot of times we pick the gift that is on the table based on how it's wrapped.
Yes.
And the size.
Yeah. How it looks.
How it looks. But sometimes the gift comes in a crinkled paper.
Yeah.
It comes imperfect.
Yeah. And sometimes, a lot of times, they're good gifts.
They're good gifts, great gifts. The greatest gifts are how it looks.
Yeah.
You know, and so we miss. Yeah, listen, the greatest story ever told. How did the King of Kings come to us? Wrapped in swaddling clothes and laying in a manger.
That's right.
They looked for Him to come with big, but He came humble.
That's right.
You know, so I challenge mothers that, hey, when the pity party is over, yeah, it's difficult. That's your child.
That's your child.
And let me show you something. What Mama did for me, and what a lot of parents need to understand. Jack, you have kids, and I know you can relate to this. If you think for 1 second that there's somebody out there in the world that can advocate for your child more than you telling a lie.
Oh, you better believe it.
There's no one that can fight for your child more than you.
I know you're right.
And this is what I said to parents all the time with special needs kids. Yes, the system is against you. Yes, there are not a lot of services in place. And believe me, I've become such a fighter now until when I am fighting for something, I go through withdrawals right now. So I've already found my next fight. All right? There's a lot against you, but you cannot give up on your child. You cannot accept what the system is not giving you. That's your child.
Because if you give up, if the parent give up, imagine what the others are going to do with the child, you know?
I remember colleagues and adults telling my mom, you're pushing Jas too hard.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Linda, you need to accept that Jas have a disability. You know what she said to them? She said, I accept that Jas have a disability. What I don't accept is that he have a mental disability.
I like it too.
She said, Jas does have a disability, but he don't have the mental disability. She was, and in her own terms, I was her exact words too. She would say, there's a shaking in his shoulder, but he's nothing in his head.
Hey. I like it. So Jas, I love it. I love your story. I've seen it all day. What is your website? How do people get to your website?
They can check out my website at www.jaswalkin.org. Jas.
Okay.
Walkin.org.
And can we purchase the book from
yes,
your website?
You can. Actually, no, not as yet. That app has not been enabled as yet. It's coming soon. However, there's another famous website that you can purchase the book on. It's called Amazon.com.
Of course.
That's much bigger than my website.
Yeah.
You can go on.
Yeah.
You can go on Amazon and you can choose the Kindle version if you have Kindle, or you can order the paperback.
And how much are they?
The Kindle version is, I think, $13. The paperback is $20. And on Saturday, May 8th, that's next Saturday. Well, Saturday, May 8th. At 1 p.m. will be the official book launch locally here. I'll have a few special autograph copies on sale for $30. I am looking forward to the book launch. And in addition to the book launch here, there's going to be an international book launch, virtual book launch for about 24 hours, promoting the book globally. I'm really, really excited about the doors that it'll open, not just for me, but because Drax, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, this story that God has given to me and have allowed me to live, one that I was not a willing participant in the beginning, believe me, because I felt as if this was a burden, this was wrong done to me. Why couldn't I be like other children? Well, come on. Why can't I do the other things? Because I didn't understand back then that He had a different role, different purpose for me. So I'm looking forward to the platforms that will create. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing, Drex, is I am going to become the national campaign manager for special needs services and education for those children that don't have it.
Awesome.
I've hired myself as that, and I said I will make sure to tell this country or whoever watches this video, if they have any doubt about my skills as a campaign manager, just check the results of the last election.
I know, right?
When I set my mind to something, I go after it, and because Jax, we have to do more for those kids. We have to do more for those parents. And I am going to be a thorn in the flesh of the people that are responsible for doing better and I'm going to make them do better with everything I have.
We need to remove the stigma that's associated with people who are labeled special needs. You know, every child, every individual is a gift. You know, everything from God is good. And no matter how you came to this world, you are a gift, and you're good.
And you have not only are you a gift, but you have gifts within you.
That's right.
And one of the things that I am doing is I want to promote focusing on the gifts and the abilities rather than the diagnosis, and thus the book Dreaming Beyond Your Diagnosis.
Okay. Jas, I know you covered about 2 or 3 other chapters in your book, and of course, you know, we will get an opportunity to purchase the book, but tell us in the summary some of the 10 steps to live a successful life.
The first 5 steps really is for the parents, because again, your parents is your first contact in the human world. And when a child comes into the world, the foundation are the parents. So I can't remember the specific order, but that's why I started out. But first, you got to deal with accepting that that's your child. Throw your pity party, but when the pity party over, get to work on loving that child unconditionally, because there's nothing more powerful to a child than unconditional love from their parents. After you've loved that child unconditionally, you've got to find the ability within the disability. Figure out what it is your child can do. Because let me tell you something. It doesn't matter how cognitively they're impaired, no matter how physically disabled they are, there is something that they can do in most cases. If the child has cognitive impairment, it's a lot more challenging, Rex, because the brain is responsible for all the rest of the function. So it will be a very, very difficult experience, but still, you still got to follow those steps, and you find that thing that your child do well. When you find out what it is your child can do well, you've got to surround yourself with positive people who see your child the way you see them. Because you don't need to be working one angle, building your child up, while your friends and family tearing them down. You've also got to find a balance between creating a nurturing environment and not creating codependency. That chapter, I know when people read that chapter, they're like, wait, where are you going with this? You just told me I gotta love this child unconditionally. Now you're talking about codependency. Because what I saw my mom had to do at times, she had to let me go. Every bird has to leave the nest eventually. And I saw her fearful many times to allow me to leave the nest. I can recall the first time she let me sleep in somebody else's house. Or the first time she let someone take me out of the island. She did not, she was afraid, especially with me having epileptic seizures. She wasn't sure everybody could handle that. But she found a way not to make me codependent. And a lot of times, and I will say this, a lot of times, even my family members at times felt as if she was too supportive of me and assisting me with doing certain tasks. But she wasn't pitying me or pampering me. She recognized what I could do from what I could not do, especially physically. But she made no excuses for me mentally. I was telling our interviewer yesterday, my mom realized, I said to him, she realized that my brain was working and my backside was working. So we know what that means.
What else you need, right?
All right, yeah, exactly. And after you would have done that, it's important for you now to find the support. And the last chapter I wrote in regards to the parents is know when to cut the navel cord. Okay. You gotta cut the cord. When you've developed this child, you've done all you can, when you've built up, let them go. Let them go. Then I shifted focus on the individual. And the first thing I said to them, you got to love yourself, baby. Yeah. You got to love yourself. I spent so many years trying to get people to see me the way I want to be seen when I didn't even know how I wanted to be seen. And Maureen taught me at 5 years old, you can't change how you look. How God made you was how He made you. And trying to alter that is an insult to His creation. And that goes deeper, but I won't go there today. But that is how God, when you try to improve or correct drastically the work of God, you are playing God. So I had to accept that this was how my maker crafted me. I made the joke, I said, one of the things I used to accept myself was I said, all these kids born 1984, August 23rd, why I look different? Why you just couldn't, because this is my earlier mindset, why you just couldn't make me like everybody else? The thought occurred to me, maybe he was bored. And I said, if you did everything the same way, sometimes we say, you know what, let me mix it up a little bit. So I said, you know what happened? Let me tell you what happened. When God was creating all these kids born, the night I was born, he got to me and he said, you know what, I'm bored. I've made all of you perfect and look alike and everything. But I see Linda here struggling with this child to get him out. Let me help you. But I can get him out my way. I can shake him up a little bit, give him a little different figure, because I want to try something different here. And he can understand why I'm doing this now. But when I do this now, it's for a greater story down the road. So accept yourself. After you accept yourself, you've got to, again, find your ability within your disability. You have to,
your gift?
Yeah, you've got to find your gift. You have to maximize it. You've got to develop it. And then I talked about creating your own space. I mentioned that earlier. And I also talked about the best kept secret, facing your fear with faith. And I encourage the reader that one of the best things you can do if you want to be successful with a disability or without, but much more with a disability, you got to know God. You got to develop a relationship with God.
That's important.
You have not an acquaintance, but a relationship with Him. And in the book, I gave examples in that chapter of where my faith helped me to overcome certain adversity. And you've got to know how to face adversity. I spoke about that as well. Adversity is a part of life, but much more for the life of a person with disability. And I gave examples of what I faced and how I dealt with it. For example, I talked about bullying. Bullying is I wish it was never ever, I wouldn't say created, but I wish there were no bullies in the world. Because if bullies only knew at times the damage they do to people they bully, I think they would stop sometime. And you know what's funny about bullying?
I don't know if they'll stop.
But I think they would. Let me tell you why I say that. You know what I hate about bullying? And it's unfortunate. Jax, I had to forgive some bullies. And you know what made me forgive those bullies? The fact that they outgrew their stupidity and did not, into this day, don't even remember bullying me. And it made me angry that they didn't remember, But then I realized a lot of them were, not that it was an excuse, but they were children.
Yeah.
And that's the danger about it. You think it's so late. That was just childish play. But you permanently affected someone's life.
And sometimes they sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, sometimes they are ignorant.
Of course.
As well.
Yeah.
And people sometimes behave because they're ignorant.
Yeah, they're ignorant. Ignorance, and so, and you're right. So in my book, I talked about how I learned to deal with bullies. And what I did was I found a way to take away the ammunition. And it took me 13 years to figure that out. But boy, when I did, one of the first things I did was that I found out that insults only hurt when they mean something to you. So what I did was, what they were using to attack me with, I began to laugh at it. And I began to attack myself with it.
Okay. So you do the reverse.
I did the reverse. Okay. And I use it as a defense mechanism. And that was the other thing I did was I stopped caring. Yeah. And the last thing I did was that I excelled in my academics. Yes. I gave them something different to talk about.
That's right.
And the final chapter I spoke about was discovering the best kept secrets of getting ahead. And one of those, I think I shared about 6 or 7 secrets that I used to get ahead. Yeah. And so I try my best to gradually show both the parent and the child that is able to read, because it's important for the parent to read the section on the child as well, especially if their child is not up, don't have the ability as yet. But you've got to have the hope, and let me tell you the group of people that this book is going to help a lot. It's those parents with kids who are borderline disabled. Drax, let me tell you something. I can tell you this right now. I was one good mother away from being put into a category of mentally disabled and mentally retarded and left on the bench. You know what I just tell you? One good mother away. There are several mothers in this country and around the world whose child's future is hanging in the balance because the system is not either forcing them to find help for their child or they've given up on finding help. And this is what I say. I am determined. Yes, it's going to be harder finding services for kids with mental impairment, but they need to be paid attention. But you see those kids that don't have any mental impairment, but may be slow, have certain cognitive impairments that change the way they learn, and we're leaving them behind. Drax, there's no excuse for that. That's the war I will to wage straight to the gates of hell. Because those kids deserve a future. A child who cannot read simply because he learns differently, because he's dyslexic, is a child who still can learn to read, but not the normal way. A child who mixing up, jumbling up numbers and letters is not a child that cannot learn. They need a new way to learn.
It's just not the traditional.
The traditional way. A child who is in grade 3, in form 1 or 2, but reading at grade 1 level, that child has been left behind. The system has left them behind. And the reason why I will be a force to be reckoned with, because I done been in the system twice. And I have personal, intimate knowledge of why the system is failing those children. I just wasn't given the opportunity to fix it. I wasn't given the resources to fix it. It wasn't because I didn't have the skills or the drive. I wasn't given the resources. And I am one person case I don't try to build a house with no tools. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a waste of my time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do it on any job I go on.
Yeah.
If you give me a job, give me the tools to do it.
Yeah, you need
and
the resources.
a lot of parents and teachers thought that I had abandoned special needs when I resigned last year to become the national campaign manager for the PNP. A lot of things were said about me and about, my commitment and all of that. And some of it hurt, But I said to them, I have a plan. I'm not leaving special needs. I just leaving that job. Your job is not your purpose. Your job is an engine towards your purpose.
Yeah, it's just a journey towards your destination.
It's the car.
Yeah.
So, believe me, my personal goal, and I said to a friend of mine, you all thought you all saw energy during the 10K? That was politics. This personal.
Yeah.
This year, I'm personally motivated because I've lived the story, Drax. I have lived it. Drax, let me tell you something. I've met parents who have kids diagnosed with autism and they can't get them in a classroom.
Yeah, I know.
And the worst part about it is,
to get them in the classroom
is not prepared for them. Yeah, and the problem I have is, and this is what I encountered as the EO for special needs. Trying to develop and implement a special needs education program within the current education system is like trying to build a room in a hotel that needs to be demolished. Because the education sector needs a U-Haul.
Yeah.
It needs a serious U-Haul. We are leaving kids behind in general education classroom. So how can I go advocate for a special needs child to get help in your classroom where you're leaving behind children with no disability?
Right.
Those are the conversations, and those are when I got the data on the number of kids in first form in this country who was reading at K level, pre-K, grade 1 and 2. It was alarming, and I brought it to the attention of my superiors. I felt like, David, is there not a cause?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why, and I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again here today, because I'm as candid as I be, even when I don't want to be, but I just don't have a dishonest bone in my body when it comes to my love for this country. Drax, let me tell you something. I know sometimes I am not the easiest cup of tea to swallow, especially when it comes to my opinions. But you know why I don't apologize for it? Because I'll say this. I will never, ever allow myself to be found in a compromising situation when it comes to my love for this country. I will not, there's a saying that says, the truth is the safest ground that we can stand upon.
Absolutely.
It is the safest ground to stand upon. And I said to the person yesterday, I said, I know why people don't like me, and I know why they're afraid of me, a lot of them. I'll tell you why. Because they can't control me. They can't trust that I will choose them or the institution over the country. And I'm not changing that. If you ask me to choose between TCI and your system or your structure, I can take the country. Because if it ain't working for the country, it ain't gonna work for me.
Absolutely.
We have to be real and honest about this. And I'm telling you the truth, I don't even know how I got this way sometimes. Because
you are.
we have to we are leaving people behind.
Yeah.
And I don't like it because I know what it feels like. I was denied a trip to the Eastern Caribbean based on a test result. They said the person with the highest score will go on the trip. I got the highest score, but it took the person with the second highest score. You know why? Because they said that because of my physical disability, I can't handle the journey.
Even though they had set the criteria.
Yes. So that experience, and you know what God did? That's why I love Him so.
You still have going.
No. I'll tell you what happened. They denied me that trip. I was okay because I said, okay, he beat me, so she got to go. When I found out that I did get the highest score, but they chose the other person to go because they didn't think I could handle the trip physically, it hurt me. You know what happened the following year? I prayed to God, I said, God, never let me ever be denied an opportunity because of how I look. The following year, there was a parliamentary debate to go to the Eastern Caribbean. I didn't win, but I was sent as an observer. The following year after that, I went back. So I ended up going 2 years back to back.
Yeah, I think you talked about it on the previous show.
I went back 2 years back to back. And since then, I wasn't satisfied. I did a cruise. I did 6 other countries. So, I said I know what it feels like to be denied access. The last thing I would say on why I'm doing this and what I plan to do with this book locally, because let me say this to Turks and Caicos Islands. The reason I chose to publish this book on Amazon, not just for the potential financial benefit, but because I don't just plan to address this issue locally. No. I plan to address it globally. And I am saying this. My goal is not just to be an advocate for special needs children. I've done that as the EO for special needs. I'm not just making noise for raising awareness. I'm interested in that. Been there, done that. My fight is for access to services and education. And any authority figure, whether it's the governor, deputy governor, premier, minister, interested in a conversation with me regarding special needs education, 2 things they better know. I ain't no poster child for the cause. If you want to talk about access to services, we can talk. Anything else, I'll pass.
Well, Jas, this has been a great conversation with you. For those of you watching, Jas has just published a book, and I encourage you to purchase the book. I won't say everything about the book on the show because you will need to purchase it. So I want you to purchase the book. I want you to be better informed, be inspired, and make a difference. And what I like about Jas is not just about Turks and Caicos Global. That's what I do too. Whatever I do, even my writings and my YouTube, I try to focus globally. Turks and Caicos is a small market, and I don't believe God just, even though we were born in this country, I believe our purpose is beyond the Turks and Caicos. And so I'm so happy to that you're taking that angle, and I believe you're going to make a great impact in the lives throughout the world. And so, Jas, I want to thank you again and for inspiring me to write my book. I mean, I've written the book, to publish my book.
Publish the book.
And hopefully by the end of this year, in time for my birthday in January, I'll have a launch.
Publish.
So thanks again. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to please go on www.jaswalkin.org or go to Amazon and you can purchase that book. Congratulations again, Jas.
Thank you so much.